r/AskReddit by Reddify. Why did that guy at work finally get fired? He missed a major deadline and didn't tell anyone and didn't show up to work to face the music. Then they found out he was assigning some of his work to another coworker but turning it in and saying he did it. Then they tried to fire him, but he didn't show up for 3 days. They basically drove to his house to fire him. Wait, why did they need to fire him in person? Couldn't they just stop paying him? I'd figure companies are under a legal obligation to ensure that they fully informed an employee that their contract has been terminated. It's probably smart to cover all your bases legally in that kind of situation. Not an expert, but that would be my take on it. A car he was loading on the flatbed rolled off down a hill and through a barn. And instead of calling the cops or our boss, he went to the liquor store and downed a bottle of vodka right outside. Edit. This story blew up way more than I expected it to, so I'll add a bit of detail for those that care to hear it. We'll call Dumbus employee Gabe just because. Gabe was a relatively fresh hire. 6 months or so, he had already been responsible for damage to several vehicles, and some of my fellow employees, myself included, had tried convincing the boss that he was more of a liability than an asset. But the boss wouldn't hear any of it because Gabe took the majority of the calls he didn't want to handle personally. The late afternoon, everyone is basically already mentally clocked out and thin head if they aren't on call. 5:30 rolls around and Gabe just got back from a rollover and is about to clock out when one of our best customers, frequent flyers, calls and asks if we could move his fancy as old Mustang to the paint shop for some work. Gabe goes and loads it up with little trouble, but doesn't set the parking brake very hard or put it in gear. It's a stick shift, drives it over to the paint shop and decides that on the big as hill is the perfect place to unload it. Instead of the loading dock, he could have literally driven it flat onto, I assume, because he wants to drive the Mustang. So genius Gabe unhooks all his straps and everything, holding tension on the car, and starts manipulating the bed to extend and lower it. Soon as it gets to a certain angle, that Mustang starts rolling down aforementioned big as hill, and it rolls into and through the storage area, basically an old repurposed barn next to the paint shop. I know it sounds like a load of BS, but every single word is true. He was drunk beforehand probably. What he did was actually relatively smart then. Option A, he calls his boss. Police get there. He is found to be drunk and might have to pay for the damage and probably loses his job. Option B, he goes straight to the liquor store, drinks lots of alcohol, gets fired, but the damage will be paid for by insurances or the company. Watching porn on company computers and came to work high all the time. Also was an hour or two late every day. Guy lasted 1 week. I honestly thought this only existed in movies. I didn't realize there are actually people out there stupid enough to do this. Edit. A lot of comments about how he got hired. I work in finance, and from my experience with banks, insurance and investment firms, they all have so far acquired a bonding process where they run criminal and credit checks on you, as they often take out insurance policies on employees, as losses from a mistake can be massive. Nothing came up during that process apparently for him. I don't understand people that watch porn at work. Do they really have such an urge to rub one out that they can't wait until their 8-hour shift ends? Just use your phone like a normal person. 55-year-old slovenly pervert. Imagine the stereotypical neckbeard with a few more under his gut-covered belt. Walked up to a 17-year-old female employee, grabbed her face in both his hands, and told her, "I want to teach you how to please a man." Security escorted him out of the building 20 minutes later. He should run for Congress or president. He was found sleeping under his desk. When awake, he was caught repeatedly sneaking out the back door, no receptionist, and leaving for hours. He was taking credit for the work of others while trying to pawn his work off on the data entry girl. He worked there for 2.5 weeks. There was a guy at one of the refineries near me that would come in to work in the morning, go through the morning meetings, then jump on a bike and ride off to some out of the way part of the perimeter fence, hide the bike, jump the fence, get on the motorbike he'd left there and go home. He'd then come back in a bit before finish time, park the motorbike, jump the fence, grab the push bike and head back in, like he'd been busy all day. He did it for quite a while before they caught him. Apparently they promoted him and he was a manager while I was there. Damn. This is my most upvoted comment yet. D. Okay. Edits. Couple other things from there. The refinery lets people order clothing whenever they need it. There was a guy who was caught ordering new boots like every week and selling them on eBay. I think he may have been fired. One of the workshop supervisors told me a story. When he was an apprentice there, he worked with a guy who was always sneaking off somewhere. So one day he followed him into a storage shed and discovered that this guy was sneaking off to rip a few cones. The apprentice is now the stoner supervisor. I had a guy like that as my manager for a grocery store for a while. He would clock in and go on break to run his power washing business. The store managers didn't care because he would arrange to power wash their houses for free. On the rare occasion he was on the hot seat with them, he would still do it, but leave instructions for us if he was paged to let them know he was on break and call his cell phone. He would leave his work site and order a breakfast sandwich for the managers and stroll in to say, "Oh, I was just left to buy breakfast, here is yours." Worked every time. He actually never got fired, and it only stopped when they closed that grocery store chain. Guy always got to work high, as in couldn't function high. We worked at a grocery store, so the work wasn't hard, but we tried extra days of training anyway. Guy said the job was too difficult and that he was going to quit. We tried to convince him not to, but left him alone after that. About a week later, we have a picture of him in the office on the do not serve wall. Turns out he sent a letter to management threatening their safety and had a no trespass and no contact order for the premises. Why in the world would you convince him not to quit if he came to work too high to function? Sometimes you literally just need a warm body in the place. They don't have to be competent. They don't have to have any hustle. They just need to be capable of not burning the ducking store down. I've been at more than one place where I could do all the work required, but I couldn't do it while also attending customers. I may resent the bench warmer for being a useless hit, but then I remember, oh hey, the bench warmer is what allows me to have days off. Hospital tech was working third shift. He was using an out of view work computer to view porn. He had been doing this for about a month before he got caught. He was caught because one of the sites had infected the computer. When the decidedly female chief mammography tech started the computer in front of a patient in the mammography room, the screen started filling up with pop-up porn ads. When the investigation was done, the listing of all the sites he visited during his misadventure used up nearly a ream of paper. I'm trying to use this mammogram, but I just keep getting pictures of tits. Edit. Thank you for gilding my tits. Edit 2. My golden titties are now my top rated comment. /r/the chow thinks walk. I worked with developmentally disabled adults. One employee was accused by a client, whom I've never seen angry before or since, of groping and staring at her naked body in the shower. This client didn't require any kind of supervision in the shower. The facility decided not to fire the employee, just move her to a different house. She was finally caught on camera sniffing clients' dirty underwear while doing laundry. No one was sad to see her go. Many decades ago, I did a similar job, and when you was accused by one of the clients touching his peen and giving him herpes, I nearly shat myself, knowing I never did such a thing, and realizing the gravity of the accusation. And I really needed that job. Turns out, this client says this every so often when we get new staff. He knows that phrase makes them panic. Someone taught them that years ago, and they learned how to make it into their version of a joke. The boss saw the horror on my face and laughed, and then told me he says that about all the new staff. Then I went to the bathroom because I was nearly hitting myself. When I worked on a psych unit, there was a woman who accused every male staff of raping her. We had to investigate every claim and they would be suspended with pay while it was investigated, and every time it was proven that it was false, they would get transferred to another unit so they didn't have to keep going through it. And then eventually the manager just stopped assigning men to the unit and it was all female staff while the patient was there. Got caught vaping in a clean room with hydrofluoric acid, butanol, and a salt bath with a temperature of 500 degrees Celsius near him. Just Like, WTF? How is that dude still alive? Was he trying to have a near fatal accident? The only thing you're supposed to do near HF is concentrate on not dying. Near HF, even retaining bowel control is optional so long as you don't die. I've worked with a lot of scary stuff, but HF is up there with oh Jesus, I should have brought the brown trousers. She messaged in the group chat we had 4 employees saying something along the lines of how she hates the job and she hoped the building burned down. Loved that girl. Had a very similar situation at my workplace. Was insulting the store manager as well, and apparently that's what tipped the scales. I don't know what industry this is, but in food service you can insult any store manager to their face all you want and they won't give a hit, but the second it gets online you're the target of a manhunt. A customer finally made a complaint about a Excel comment he made. Backstory: this guy was super weird with women. Got really depressed a lot and would talk about being alone forever often. Despite being 24. When he was in a good mood though, he would apparently be hitting on customers as a cashier at a fast casual restaurant. He's done some pretty creepy things towards women from the store as he's told me. The kicker was when a customer pointed to a picture on the menu and said that looks delicious. To which he said not as delicious as you must be. She phoned in and he was fired. Sounds like someone I used to be friends with. Nice looking guy. Nothing special, but still a nice looking guy. He couldn't figure out that the reason he couldn't get and keep a girlfriend was because he had such a hitty personality. I finally had to tell him that The Handmaid's Tale was not a how-to guide for dealing with women. We are no longer friends. I had a friend who loved that pickup artist hit. The first time I ever heard of Reddit. He was explaining how to get any woman cause he saw it on Reddit, and he was trying it out on a girl. A week or so later, we were supposed to hang out with him, but he cancelled cause he was depressed when a girl he was pursuing turned him down at a party. Make sure to like and subscribe so we can watch together.